Hello, welcome everybody. I cannot see who else is joining, but it kind of doesn't matter. Welcome.
Got Stephen over here that's joining.
Hey, Stephen.
How you doing? You okay? And we've got Kane.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Fine.
Good. Say hello, Kane.
Hello.
Don't mess us around.
Hello, everyone.
By the way, I just want to say, everyone, we're also going outside live to Aberfeldy Street, and we've got a socially distanced microphone.
We've got everything set up.
So we're just going to turn the camera around, and you can see that's our socially distanced microphone, ready for participants to come in one at a time off the street as well. So the show is going out live to the street.
And we take safety very seriously, so we've got different windshields for the microphones, so whoever comes and talks, hopefully they will come and talk, they can have their own windshields, so it's all nice. So, But this is a very experimental talkie-okie, actually, I'll have you know, because we have been here in Aberfeldy for a while, but we usually have been outside, haven't we, Mike and Rick? Because, by the way, there's Rick as well. He's on the kind of backstage, in the backstage area, which seems like the entire studio is the backstage area today. And the front stage is the street. So that's what's happening here. I'm going to lurk here just to see if there are any people who want to say something. But welcome to Aberfeldy Live. This is what's happening. I can't see the screen, so I have no idea.
Okay, can you put the camera back now, please, Margot?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Nice one. Okay. Right, so I guess it is time to kick this off. Just want to say as well, welcome, Paul. Hopefully you got that, and we are here live in Aberfeldy, but we're not just live online, we're also live on the street with our socially distanced single microphone with replaceable windshields, because we're trying to connect as well to the Aberfeldy community. You don't have to be from Aberfeldy to be part of this conversation, but we're going to find out what the locals think as well. In the meantime, let's kick this off. Shall we kick it off with a video just before we go? Of what? I don't know. Just pick one at random. Pick whatever one you want. Because we did some socially distanced vox pops earlier in the. We've got a few people coming in, so maybe just give it 2 seconds. We'll welcome these people.
Hello. Everybody.
Let's kick this off. Shall we kick it off with a video just before we go? Who's that has got their Facebook Live on as well? I believe that's Gary. So
that's a classic from Gary. But welcome to Aberfeldy Live. We are live from our studio. We are live from the streets. There are multiple people joining all the time. So welcome. Hello. And it is a highly experimental show, and it's experimental because we are trying some new stuff here tonight. We have been around Aberfeldy Street for 4 years now with our studio just here on Aberfeldy Street next to PFC. Very good chips, couldn't recommend enough. Actually, picture behind me is the PFC and there's us on the corner. But actually, we today are experimenting with bringing people in from the streets, and we have done a little bit of vox popping in a socially distant way in the past few days. So at some point soon we will be opening up with some provocations from people in Aberfeldy Street and the surrounding areas, because it's a really lovely area. There's a lot of people living here. And yeah, so that's what's going to be happening. But is it too early for a round of names?
Well, I mean, I think we can. Let me see who we've got. Let me just go on the participants list. I can't see all the participants on this tiny screen. Yeah, I think basically what we should maybe do is just play a video, because we've been talking. Some of you have come in a bit later. We've been actually talking to people here in Aberfeldy Street on the street, and we've got a socially distanced microphone on the street, so it's maybe worth just playing one of those videos just to see what people are saying. Hang on. Can we play a video? Okay.
Okay, here we go.
There's one beneficial thing that's beyond belief. This is the first time in my whole life, and I'm in my 8th generation now, my 8th decade. The most wonderful thing is that our planet Earth is had a chance to breathe again. The lungs of the planet can breathe because the pollution of a million planes in the sky dropping all this shite out on everybody, and all the exhaust fumes and all the rest of it, and the noise that humans make. You can actually hear birds singing to each other now gently. It's beautiful. So this is a strange time, but people are fed up with sitting at home now. That's why they're all out and about.
Meeting lots of new people, volunteers, and obviously lovely people who we deliver to, so that's a good thing. I mean, be nice to have met them under different circumstances, but and we do shopping, medication it was at first, but I think they've got that pretty well sorted now.
But the great thing is, you go down Oxford Street, it's as quiet as a mouse, there's no noise, and something else, the crap that people, every other week was Black Friday, the crap that people were forced into doing, it's in your face, you've got to buy this is better for you, and this is cheaper now and all that. This isn't happening now, and it's such a relief to turn on the goggle box and not have all this crap thrown at you all the time. So all the clothing industry, I'm sad for the people who lose their business and what have you, but in essence, these are all accessories. You don't actually need them.
Can you let us know if you heard everything okay in the video?
We can hear.
You couldn't hear anything at all, so you could just see people talking.
We could hear a little bit and then it cuts off. I think it's because, isn't it normally if not everyone's on mute, it sort of tries to loop the audio through someone else's computer.
Okay, so maybe we could try this one again, or maybe
Everyone on mute.
names to start with.
I can't see all the participants, so maybe we just get a hello from everybody.
So why don't I just mute everybody to start with, and then Mike, you can unmute yourself. Sorry, bear with us. This is a new format. It's not we're not unfamiliar with Zoom, but we're doing multiple platforms here. So we could very quickly. I'm going to mute everyone. You are also pending in the waiting room. Not anymore, so that's all fine. Cool, so why don't we do a round of names? So we've got, well, I'm Margaret, this is Mikey, we've got Ellen, we've got Stephen, we've got Kane, we've got Gary, we've got William, we've got Leo, we've got Joe, Paul, Lorna, and Michael. So welcome everybody. And now I'm going to move to another camera because this is all really, really strange. We are kind of multitasking with multiple cameras. So here we are at Aberfeldy Street. Mikey, you're going to have to be my right hand or left hand, as the case may be, and let me know if you've got something to say. But welcome to Aberfeldy Live. We said that already. And we've been here in Aberfeldy Street for some time, running our talkies out on the street, bringing people together to have a chat. And this time, we've gone out a little bit digital. We've done some kind of digital online versions of Talkie, but tonight is slightly experimental because not only are we here, we're also going to try to get some points from people on the street. And the video which we played earlier on today was from some of the conversations that we had in a very social, distant manner. We were having with people out in Aberfeldy, and we heard from a few people there. And we very much want to send what they've got to say out to the world and out to you. You don't even have to be based in East London. But if you are, it's a great bonus. And if you've got something that's kind of on your mind, something that you want to share or you just want to kick us off with, please do. And in the meantime, going back to the video, we heard from, who was the
well, that was Roger and that was Sheila. And I think I can just relay Roger's point. Roger's point was basically that COVID has forced us to slow down. You can hear birds again. People have stopped buying crap. So it's a kind of breather for the planet, or that's what it felt like to Roger. And Sheila was saying, well, I'm making new connections now because I'm going out volunteering. I'm talking to people I didn't otherwise talk to. So in a way, it's more like the positive things that are happening. What do we think of those positive things? I guess is the provocation. Kane, you've got your hand up. Is that from before? Is that the technical question, or have you got a point to make it?
It was from before, but hello.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about this question of a kind of breather for the planet? The Earth is actually not having the level of noise pollution, air pollution, this kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a really, like, I think it's a Radio 4 thing, but someone was saying it's not that the birds are louder, like they've always been as noisy as they are currently, and apparently they might be even a little bit quieter. It's just that there's no noise pollution at the moment. So I totally agree. Like, I mean, I think everyone is sort of expecting that, like, when things return to some sort of new normal, that, like, there'll be less travel, there'll be less flying. I think people are probably more conscious of it. I think there's probably a devil's advocate that won't just slip back, but I guess I'm a bit of an optimist that there'll be some stuff that sort of stays and people get used to working from home and cycling places and doing stuff like that.
So do you think some of the habits that people have developed in the last few months will stay? Will it go the other way? Will people suddenly, I mean, what do other people think? Will you be partying more? Will you be going out more? Will you be going on? I'm certainly going to be going to TK Maxx as soon as it opens because I've worn out trousers. So I'm going to go on a buying frenzy at TK Maxx, for me anyway, which is like 2 pairs of trousers.
But I think the interesting thing that Roger was saying in the video is that, I think we were just so used to going out and accumulating, purchases and getting more stuff. And now we're kind of going back to something very basic, like, listening to the world around us. And I do wonder whether it's like what you said, Kane, whether the world was always there, the birds were always singing, and our ears just weren't tuned in to hear them. Really.
Have we been ignoring the planet, I guess, is another way of putting it. Ellen's got a point. Let me come to you, Ellen. Ellen? Yep, go on.
On that topic of, improving the environment, Mike, you said that you're going to go out and get some new trousers as soon as TK Maxx opens. But I've just been seeing a sort of conversation happening online about, making more ethical purchases and making sure that the company you're buying clothes from is actually ethical. And, for example, they're paying their staff. A lot of staff have been furloughed all around the world and they're not actually getting paid. So do you think people are going to start to make more conscious decisions about where their clothing is coming from? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Will we be more conscious? What do you think? Anyone? Are you going to be more conscious now of where your clothing's coming from? Are you going to be boycotting places like TK Maxx because they probably don't pay their staff very well. It's a huge American corporation, isn't it? Should I really even be buying from them at all? I don't know. What do other people think? Any views on this? Crowd? People?
I mean,
yeah.
I can share my opinion.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to say that I'm not going to shop in high street stores anymore, but I will be looking at how they are responding to the current backlash from, people who are sort of holding them accountable to the fact that they're not treating the factory workers fairly. I suppose this conversation has been happening for decades now about factory workers in, Bangladesh and all around the world who are producing our clothes, making our clothes, should I say, but not actually getting paid fairly. I think I'll be thinking about it more, but I'm not sure if I'll actually be purchasing more consciously. I don't know.
Okay, so it's hard to know really in these times when we don't really know what we're going to do. I mean, it's been a very uncertain moment, really. Anybody else? What do you think? Will your shopping habits change? Are you even shoppers? The group of people I can see here, they don't look like big. Stephen.
Yeah, well, I can't really shop any more than hang on,
Yeah.
let's get this right.
Yeah.
I can't go down from where I was because I always used to shop at charity shops anyway.
So you kind of, do you think more people will be joining you at the charity shops now?
It's hard to say.
Okay, we've got a point from William over here. Go on.
I think like a lot of seeing as like we've been sort of living within like a 1 mile or 2 mile radiuses for like the last 2 months, sort of doing stuff locally, not wanting to travel really far to like a big shopping mall or shopping center that much, and then also like seeing sort of my neighbors and actually how that like buying local can actually have that real effect on the people that I'm living around. So like even if it's just going to local shops or that, then it's sort of I don't have to travel too far. I guess what you were saying earlier about like things that might roll over into normal life, like sort of slowing down, has sort of made me realize that sometimes I should actually just slow the hell, just back up a little bit. I might not need to go to that all the time, and actually spending time at home with my family being quite positive in many ways.
So
will
we
listening to them and all of that?
Will we actually slow down a little bit now that we've been forced?
I don't know, because I'm like gagging to go to the pub and have a few beers with some mates and go and see a gig. And there's part of me that really wants to do that, and maybe it will just flip back to normal. I don't. It's quite confusing. Then there's also the sort of worry in a way of being around lots of people.
We got a point. We've got our first participant on the street, so we've got a point from someone on the street. Let's go to them. We're talking about slowing down. Have you slowed down out there? What's your name, first of all?
My name is Sarah.
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah.
These are the people out on the
There's the people out there saying, Sarah, have you slowed down? No, are you still going? Do you think a little bit more? Have they got a bit slower, or are they just still doing things at the same pace?
Well, not everything is the same because we can't really go outside much or talk to random people on the street or anything.
Yeah.
Because it's
Sarah was saying, am I audible when I speak here?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you were saying earlier that you really miss your friends. There's been a lot going on, but your friends kind of live all over the place, so you can't really see them. And your mom was saying that she's really bored. She's really missing, speaking to people.
But what they're saying here on the conversation is that actually slowing down, maybe it's good to be. Is it good to be bored?
No.
What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah? Yeah, come on in.
Good to be bored.
It wasn't too scary, was it, Sarah?
No.
Sarah, say something. Say something.
Okay, well, let's not be
It's all good.
Say something.
Yeah. And Mum,
Open.
so is being bored a little bit good as well? Because you've got more time to kind of, mind space to think about other things than normally you're too busy to think about.
A little bit good. But if last week my Eid day, no one come in my home. I'm not go and somewhere else. Just stay home. I make a lot of traditional food, but no one eating. Stop my food.
I give to money. Look, if you've got some surplus food, you can always bring it. So we're getting some.
So I give this money to the person.
Remind me of
Nudge.
Nudge is saying she's kind of hiding around the corner. Maybe later she'll walk across. But she's saying actually she's cooking a lot of traditional food, but there's no people to share it with. We'll accept food.
We don't get paid for this, so we do need some kind of recompense.
But I am enjoying at home because I'm doing some online course.
What do people think about this? Have you been cooking more? Is being bored in itself a good thing? What do people say? Is it good to be bored in a way? Stephen, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think bored has a negative connotation, doesn't it? I mean, inactive perhaps, productively inactive. I run music workshops for people.
Yeah.
And some of what I was trying to do, songwriting workshops, for example, I kind of wonder about the benefit of, because the format for a songwriting workshop is, everything happens really quickly. You've got to pressurize people to come up with ideas. And I'm sure that translates to other areas in life too, brainstorming ideas. Let's get these ideas out. But to me, those creative moments come out of complete stillness. The ideas just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So there.
So actually, you need a little bit of space and time in a way. Okay.
Yeah.
Lorna, is there a point from you? You've not got a screen on, so if you can use the raised hand function to let us know you want to talk. Have you got a point, Lorna?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can. We can. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I was going to say that in terms of people looking at how they're spending their money and who they're spending their money with, I hope that people maybe not, be selfish and really look at how they're spending their money. Look at how some of these companies have treated their staff in this situation that we're in, because in providing furlough for them, because I know that in like, for example, Zara, they've furloughed their staff in Europe, but the people who are actually making the clothes and producing those clothes, they haven't furloughed them, and so they don't know what's going to happen, and they have had to work without the protection that they should have. And also Amazon is another one as well, and so I hope that. And in terms of being bored, I think it's probably good to be, well, I don't know if it's bored, but because out of boredom, I think, productivity can come, and people can, creativity can come, because sometimes, you say you're bored, but if you find something that you really think about what it is that you want to do, maybe to try something, to learn to play the guitar, or maybe even, just to maybe say, okay, I'm going to make something, and that will take some time, and that would help to relieve the boredom, really, if people are really bored, really. But
so there's some productivity that comes from being bored.
I think so, yeah, creativity, yeah.
Okay, what do other people think about this?
Yeah, but like what Naj was saying, she was saying that she never has time to do stuff that that she's doing now. So she took up some courses in Islamic studies, and but the problem is with the youngest child, who keeps on wanting her attention because they're really bored, and I think she's finding that hard. But she really said she's really enjoying she's really not enjoying not being able to see her friends, and I think that's something that we potentially take for granted, really, in times when when we were able to go and meet everyone at any point, but now it's just a bit, we really kind of notice the value of it as well, in the value of my time, but for different reasons. I want to do fun stuff more, whereas previously I was just no, sorry, I can't talk to you, I'm really busy, I've got work to do. And now it's more hey, I just want to go and chill in the park, stuff that I've never done. So there you go.
Well, let's ask other people. Let's value their time and ask them what they've got to say. We've got our first visualization from Rick, which is this going to be the post-COVID frenzy of buy now when we come out of this? Let's go to Kane. What's your point, Kane?
I just want to hear from Gary about you're still working, Gary. I'm still working as well. But you seem to be getting a lot in your day. And how do I go and see the International Space Station?
Okay, this is something that's come up in the chat. If you've been following the chat, there's something about going. If you're bored, go out and see the International Space Station. Hopefully, this all ties in together. I'm not sure, Gary. Let's hear from you. Hang on.
Yeah. Okay, you hear me? Yeah. Well, I am working 5 days a week because Well, Margot knows, and I think you know, Ken. I'm not sure, but my actual job is managing 2 pavilions in Mile End Park in Tower Hamlets, and in fact, one of them, which is called the Ecology Pavilion, is actually it's in use today and tomorrow as a NHS blood donation centre, which of course they still have to harvest blood. I'm not actually working on them. We've been giving that work to casual staff so they can earn money, or 0-hour staff. But I've actually been redeployed as 3 days a week while there's not much happening in them, as a park ranger. So I'm actually 3 days a week, I'm a park ranger, and 2 days a week I'm actually doing my job. And initially I was working 5 days from home during this.
Yeah.
Not doing it very well, but in fact, I walk to work, whether I'm a park ranger, sorry about my phone there, whether I'm a park ranger or whether I'm working at the pavilions, the Art Pavilion or the College Pavilion in Mile End Park. So I walk to work, I don't use public transport. Sorry about that. And so I'm actually, my life is full of activity because I'm going around 3 days a week around the parks and I'm walking to work and doing
Go and take a part. Well, we're basically, just to let you know, so it's a bit weird, but we're doing a pop-up talk show. You may have seen us before. Have you seen us before? So now we can't obviously do it because of social distancing and stuff. So we're doing it a little bit online. So this is the screen.
All I'm hearing is
here. What's that?
Okay. What's this about the International Space Station?
Right. Okay. So amongst things that I'm doing, so I'm working. I'm not working today, so it's been a great weekend for me. My weekend is a Thursday and a Friday. But yeah, the space station. I've got a friend who lives nearby, who's somebody I know through the American music scene, which I'm very involved in. He's very involved in it. He's a bit of a nerdy kind of guy. Lovely, but a bit nerdy odd and whatever. And he's been posting photographs of the space station, International Space Station, flying overhead. So I can't really see it from my garden house because of light pollution. So I live about 5 minutes walk maximum from Hackney Down. So quite often, I'll do it this evening, going up there and watching the space station flying over. But it only does it throughout the year or whatever. Quite often it's just doing it during the daytime, so you don't see it. But it's in a little season at the moment where you see it at night. Right. Round about, depending which day it is, between about 10 or 1 in the morning. And then you can have the double whammy, like, so I've become a bit of a nerd myself, temporarily, but you can have the double whammy. So like a week ago, a supply vessel took off from Japan. So I've twice been out and seen the supply vessel and the space station. And then it should have been last night, but it's cancelled because of weather. On Saturday, there's the Elon Musk's manned flight to the space station is taking off at 9:30.
And you can actually see these things.
Huh? You can actually see them. So at 9:50, you're supposed to be able to actually see the rocket going overhead at 9:50. You can't see it. So tonight, I think tonight's round about. I mean, I'll look it up when I'm not speaking, and I'll write the time.
Yeah, stick it into the chat. Stick it into the chat.
You actually see it flying over the space station. It's really quite bright. So it's like you think, if you wouldn't know where it is, you think, well, is that an airplane? But it's not flashing, because obviously airplanes flash their lights.
Right. Okay. Well, have a look and then stick it into the chat so we can all.
So I've got an app which tells me when it's going over and shows you the map of its journey. Yeah, but it doesn't do it all the time. It's just we're in a period at the moment where you might see it, where you can see it.
I can see the conversations are going in two very different directions here on the table and out on the street. People are still a little bit shy approaching this space
Not like
ship.
You,
no, I don't have a problem approaching anyone about anything, apparently. But it's interesting because people are talking about what's going to happen in the first week of June. Shabby there on the street was just saying that he's going to wait for the Prime Minister's speech, but probably no big revelations will come in the first week, but maybe in the second week. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how to link it to the space shuttle. But isn't it?
I mean, I think it's interesting. Like those people are kind of self-isolating by themselves, aren't they? And they're going to the most extreme version of self-isolating because they're out in space, so they're not going to get the virus. However, they probably would have a lot to tell us about what it's like to see the world from afar, I suppose. And that maybe will give us some insight into, and also being bored, because it's probably quite boring sitting.
One funny thing about the space station is that my friend who's the nerd is sometimes goes on tall ship sailing. And he says when they're in the middle of the Atlantic or wherever, when he flies over,
point a camera is
they're the nearest humans.
Yeah.
They're only like 250 kilometers away.
Okay.
In the sky, but
so they're like the neighbours.
Okay, and then we get close up.
Okay, fantastic. Where do we want to go with this conversation? Do we want to talk about space neighbours? Do we want to talk about the stimulus of being bored? Do we want to talk about ethical treatment of workers in shops? It's kind of up to you. This is Talkioki. I feel like we're going into 3 different kind of threads all at the same time somehow. But give us a steer. Where do you want to go with this conversation?
We can't hear you, Margot. No.
You might have run out of batteries. Let me see. No, you go and say something.
What about now? Can people hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Sorry, I must have switched it off with my pocket. I'm just going to wave to this man over there. Hello. But apropos of Elon Musk, I think I saw somebody on Twitter, some lady commenting on Twitter saying, how can Elon Musk juggle sending a space shuttle into space and also having just having a child? Questions that you never ask a white male CEO. Whereas if you're a woman, apparently these are more frequent questions. How do you juggle? Is so amazing. But blokes apparently can do all of that. So congratulations, blokes.
Margot.
Apparently multitasking is not even possible.
Anyway, let's just find out what other people have got to say. Let's go to Ellen. What's your point, Ellen?
I was just going to say, is it ethical going to space? Is that good for the environment? Doesn't the fuels from going to space have an impact on the environment? It costs a lot of money. Maybe you can give us an insight into that, Gary.
Okay. Well, we had George there just appear for a second and then disappear. We're talking about, is it, in a way, let's spread this out. There's a lot of fuel, a lot of money, a lot of energy, a lot of carbon emissions going into just launching something into space. Is it worthwhile? Or should we actually be giving the planet a breather, connecting it to the earlier conversation?
But if I wanted to have one camera just like live on the street, is that
I'm enjoying the behind the scenes from Margot.
What's that?
I can hear you, Margot.
You can't hear me.
Just turn this. This is in purple. Turn yourself down.
And now I can't hear you.
How people have been coping with this? You can't.
We can hear you.
How are people coping with this digitalization? Because to be honest, in a way it's really great, and we've ended up doing things in a way that we haven't done them before with Talkioki and stuff. But we do miss like human contact. But there's a lot to take on, and I just wonder how you guys are coping with it. Because I think out in Aberfeldy Street, people just, they're not so much bothered about Zoom, but they're happy to stop and chat to you. And I think that would always be my preference, but,
It's just at the top, but it's all right.
Lorna, have you got a point?
It's clean. Clean it. I haven't cleaned it yet, but it's clean.
Look.
Lorna?
Yeah, but look at it. It looks like brand new paintbrush.
Oh, sounds like...
Throw away all these.
Sounds like there's some conversation coming from.
We're getting a lot of conversational bleeding. Yeah. Okay, so where are we going to go with this conversation? Where do we want to go? Ellen, are you there? We don't seem to have your picture there. George, are you there? Say hello. Stick on your screen. There we go.
Hi, how you doing?
You're looking a bit like a space station launch sort of person. What do you think about this question about space? Is it worth it spending all this money and creating all this pollution to send this stuff into space?
No, it's there's enough problems down here on the ground.
Yeah,
it's a diversion. I mean, it's an amazing science, literally amazing science project, but I failed to get excited about it for, you know, I mean, it's going to have impact, but not in our lifetime. I think there's more that can be done practically in our lifetimes, you know.
So what should we be spending all that space station money on? That's a question that goes out to everyone, really. Let me come to Kane. Kane, what's your point?
Isn't the focus on space travel? Isn't that just we're sort of, you know, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, these like very rich entrepreneurs? Aren't they all just focusing on trying to get to Mars and to set up a new habitation because we fucked this one up? Is it an exit strategy, a bit like well, various films where people live on Mars? Completely forgotten. What was the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it?
Total Recall, yeah.
Total Recall, good film.
Yeah.
It might all be a dream.
Well, just so I was waving not to say hello, just to draw attention to myself. That
okay, there is a raised hand function that
I was doing that, and then Margot just waved back at me. So, and then there was.
No, I wanted to bring in the space. I wanted to be more like the you know, ET experience. But anyway,
let's go. We've got Gary. We've got Ellen has got a raised hand as well. So let me go to you first, Gary, and then Ellen.
Well, I must say the reason why I'm going out to watch this International Space Station is just a nerdy, odd, fun thing to do, and going out at night onto Hackney Downs. I quite like doing that. The thing, I mean, Richard Branson's motivation is purely it's hedonistic, really, and he's talking about space tourism and all that kind of palaver. Whereas Elon Musk, he's a businessman, and he's and I'm not supporting his position on anything, but basically it's like a private finance initiative, isn't it? You know, he's just a commercial provider, whereas most of the stuff that's being done today is being done by the state, by United States, by NASA, by Japan, by India, or whatever. It's been the states that have been sponsoring space travel mainly. So what, Elon Musk is the first person to actually send somebody in space commercially, but NASA are paying him for it. You know, commercial provider. Yeah.
We're doing a pop-up talk show. Have you got things to say?
Ellen, have you still got? We've lost Ellen.
Talking about sending a shuttle into space is a good use of money.
So where do we want to go?
Do you think it's a good use of money?
This conversation.
Do you think it's a good use of money sending a space shuttle into space now? Because Elon Musk is doing it now. Hello.
We can still
hear basically, you may have. Do you guys live around?
Can you hear me? No.
Because we've got this pop-up talk show that we sometimes take out on the streets, like around the table. If you look in, that's the thing that he's sitting inside.
You've been listening in. You've not said
obviously now social distancing, we can't like properly do it.
We've still got Margot.
Offline. So yeah, it's proper. No, but they can see you if I turn the camera on you.
Anyone got any?
Do you want to bring? Do you want to say something? Because we're just like chatting about like.
Say something about space.
I'm mega camera shy. Honestly, like don't worry.
Well, basically, I was going to say it's rich men, with money, and it's perhaps it's a diversion because there's so. I mean, space is really fantastic because obviously it's the unknown, isn't it? And it's when you think about that there is these galaxies and there's these planets and you're always wondering, there's always these questions. But at the same time, I believe that it's a diversion for these rich men because there's so much that they could use that money to do on Earth. Alleviate homelessness, for starters. You know what I mean? Poverty. I mean, we're living in the 21st century, and the amount of people living in poverty is just really, really crazy. And I'm sure that people from in the 1920s probably would never have dreamed that, or even say maybe people in the 1940s when they came back from the war and stuff would never have thought that in 2020, if they've actually envisioned 2020, that people would be living on the street, begging for food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think they could do a lot more to help to alleviate some of the poverty that's happening. Not looking at around the world and in the country that they are from. You know what I mean? It's just, look at America. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So I think it's a diversion. Space is interesting, but I think that they could do something more. And also, I think with this space, it's like another space race between rich businessmen.
Okay, so it's kind of like rich men's toys, basically.
Yes, who can get to space first, as with the Americans and the Russian, as to who can get to space first.
So it's kind of like showing off, really, isn't it?
Yes, basically, I think so. You know, they've got the money, and so I can do. It's like the last frontier. Let's conquer this last frontier. You know, and So that's my point, really.
Is it okay? So Lorna's saying it's kind of like the plaything of the rich and powerful. What do other people think? There's a few people that are online that are not got their videos on. There's Lorna, but there's other people as well. So anyone that wants to say anything, just do try and go through that virtual raised hand. John, have you got anything to say on this matter? Can you hear what we're saying?
Oh, me?
No, that goes to John.
Oh.
I'm trying to bring John into the conversation, but maybe we'll leave it for a second. What do other people think about this? Is it a good way to spend money? Is it just like the plaything of the rich and powerful? It was the governments of Russia and America before, but now it's the super rich. Anyway, so yeah, Gary, go on.
I'm only really contributing to break into the silence because I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, well that's good. Yeah.
But the thing about back to what Steve said about it's it's not a priority, and we need to spend on things which, like what Lorna was saying, like homelessness or whatever. And so much of that is, what should happen to, or should it happen HS2 happen in the first place? Should Crossrail Crossrail, you can't stop Crossrail happening now because it's almost completed. But should HS2 should happen? What is it that shouldn't happen? What is there's so much more. I mean, I think space is a bit more easier to have an opinion on, but in terms of what is progress to keep us, keep us in the game or whatever, what progress?
Yeah.
The people are always looking to move forward. Some people have that attitude, wanting to move forward and explore. What is I was listening to an essay on the radio. Well, it wasn't an essay. No, it was a story. I can't remember what it was about. It was about one of the people who, basically, it was a diary of somebody who was with Scott. That burning desire to go to the South Pole to their almost certain death, which did go to their death. Now, was that necessary? Is that a diversion? Well, it was for them, wasn't it? So, but what is a diversion? When should we stop moving forward? Is the issue. Now, of course, there's a lot of money spent on space, but you probably can solve all the world's kind of poverty without even touching what's going on in space. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? About how do you stop the drive to move forward, to explore, to push boundaries?
So, I mean, it comes back to this question about always having to speed up that we were talking on before. Now that we've been forced to slow down, we're kind of bored, and we've got all this time. But do we actually? Have we actually sped up too much with all this technology, with all this extra public transport and extra stuff? Kane, what's your point?
It just made me think. I'd not really thought about it at all since. And there is a go faster button on the participant chat, which is good to know. Talking about speeding up.
Is there a go slower? Yeah, there is. Yeah.
There is a go slower. Yeah, I don't know how it works. Is it showing up on my thing?
How do you go faster? There you go. Speed people's voices up.
Yeah. It doesn't. I thought my voice was suddenly going. Maybe I'll start speaking faster, a lot faster. But I hadn't even thought about. There's all of there's Crossrail, there's CS, whatever it is. The National Rail initiatives. There's questions around a third Heathrow Airport terminal and third runway, and it's quite interesting how all of those conversations have disappeared. You just heard nothing about them. And I guess there is this question coming out of it of whether those sort of big major initiatives, we've kind of come to an end to them, and there's a sort of expectation that we will travel more and we'll move around the world more.
Have we lost that expectation? Are we now just kind of like, have we reached peak travel levels and now we're going to just slow down and get a bit more local, as William was saying earlier on, that we're going to go more local now? Is that going to happen? Are we going to slow down in all of our travel?
I guess what happens if your local's not very nice?
Okay, can you give us an example?
Not really.
No.
I that's a bit devil advocate, a bit of devil advocate, because in Peckham it's been quite amazing. Like that, I totally agree with what William was saying, just about suddenly exploring the area a lot more and then discovering all these things that are literally like 5-10 minutes from your house, or as with Gary, discovering that you can see the International Space Station from your nearest park.
Gary, what was your point?
Well, I was just thinking, because Kane mentioned, just as a passing example of the third runway, and I was thinking this the other day. What might be the case that the third runway won't ever be needed now? It's an interesting thing what the impact of all this will be on travel. I mean, I rarely fly. I've flown, in return flight, I think once in 5 years. And I had planned to go to America in September. I'm still thinking of going next year or whatever. And I'm doing things like thinking, because I don't travel enough in a way, and I want to start doing it a little bit. And I'm thinking, I want to go see my friends in Amsterdam. Can I get to Amsterdam by ferry? Can I go there? I'm thinking things like that, Can I, probably have to go up to Hull and go to Rotterdam and whatever, and use 4 days of a week traveling. But yeah, it did cross my mind the other day. How will this impact an air flight? Will we just get over all? Will the world just get over all this, and it'll all go back to, the same demand for flying, or will the third runway never be needed now? It's an interesting, will the third runway be needed at Heathrow, or wherever it's going to be?
Ellen's put her hand up. What's your point? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point about, will people be flying less? I think that people are going to fly just the same amount. I think maybe people are going to want to see the world more now because
they've been locked up for so long. Yeah,
and also you can just see how life and just opportunity and access to the world can be taken away from you. And maybe there'll be a feeling that perhaps this can happen again at any time. So maybe people might seize the moment more. I'm hoping that air travel prices will go down. I think we're kind of seeing that. I think some cities of Spain are saying that they're going to cut the prices. I could be wrong there, but I think the cost of travel will go down, which I'm happy about.
Are you going to be traveling more?
As long as the future jobs and money is there, then yes, I will be traveling more.
All right. So you'll want to travel a bit more. You want to get out there and actually get out and about, Kane?
I'm about to put some food on, but I was going to just say, it's a really good, I've been doing this for a while. Oh, the 8 o'clock clap as well. Well done, Gary, for remembering. Yeah, it's really amazing when you start to think, actually, how can I travel somewhere not taking a plane? The annoying thing is it's more expensive. That's the real bug of it. But it is, I've travelled to loads of places, mostly in Europe, but to loads of places by train. And it is more fun.
I mean, how much more expensive is it?
Oh, it's probably, you're probably talking, if you're getting a really cheap flight on Ryanair, you're probably talking generally, I'd probably say if you do really well, it'll be like £70 more expensive. But it can be more than that if you don't book it. And that's like booking on the cheapest possible thing.
So it's not that much, not actually that much more to go by train.
Yeah, it's not that. If you're not seeing it as a commodity, I think that's the thing, is if you suddenly see flying as it was, right, you know, I think the prices have probably got a little bit, they've got a bit more expensive on the low-cost airlines. But back in the day when it was like 99p, it just like, you know, flying felt like nothing to European destinations.
Gary, you had a point?
Did I? Can't remember now. Sorry.
Oh, well, we were talking about, you know, are we going to be flying more?
No, I do. I remember now. Sorry to interrupt. I do remember now. Because one of the things that's really, because I do travel a bit, but I'm not a big traveller. I'm not going around the world. I've never been to Asia. I've been to Australia. I went a couple of years ago. Never been to Asia. Never been to Africa. I've been to Europe quite a bit. I've been to the States and Canada and the Caribbean. But you know, that's better than a lot of people, and that's great. I'm not complaining about anything, but I'm just thinking I'm 61 now, so what do I want to do in terms of getting about? Because the other thing that really gets me is I don't know this country well enough. You know, even Yorkshire, where I'm from, Leeds, you know, and I do know it a bit, but I'm thinking, oh, look at that fantastic place, and I want to go. I've never been to Ireland. Well, I've been to Dublin, but that's not Ireland in the same way that New York isn't America. You know what I mean? So, you know, so I actually really want to explore much more locally, and then, you know, much more local places in Europe. But then again, will I miss my last opportunities to do? I've never been to India. You know what I mean? It's like, so it is. You know, I'm happy with what I've got and what I can do, and I think I will likely fly very rarely. I'll do very, very, very special trips. I don't think I'll go flying for, you know, breaks. And I've got some friends in Greece. I'd love to go see them, so I might do that. I don't think I am going to do a lot, but that's not to do with where we are now and what's happened these last few weeks. I was thinking that anyway, because, you know, climate change, where are we with those debates? You know what I mean? And all those debates that we were having, where are we? You know, we've kind of not forgotten about them, you know, but we're not, we've forgotten we were concerned about those things almost, you know what I mean?
I mean, do you think that discussion has been buried a little bit now, the climate change discussion? Or has it come out more now that people have got more time? Because certainly what we were hearing on the street is that people are saying, yeah, it's great that the planet's having a breather.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're temporarily. We're temporarily forgetting a lot of things. In fact, we're almost temporarily forgetting how petrified everybody was 8 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Some of the people that I'm seeing now, because as a park ranger, I'm coming across groups of people, families of, like, you know, Monday before last, about 14 cross-generational members of a family were partying like it was carnival in my park, in Mile End Park, where I work.
Right.
And you can almost be sure that they were the same people that were fucking petrified 8 weeks ago and were panic buying.
Right.
I don't know. We're almost forgetting what it was like 8 weeks ago. Never mind the discussion about climate change.
Okay, we've got a point from Stephen. Then I'm going to come to Ellen. Stephen?
Yeah. I don't know. Traffic's picked up as well, so I don't know. I'm a bit dubious. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I live in. By the way, we've got somebody else from Peckham here. He's not on the screen at the moment.
Yeah.
Around my way, it's back. Traffic's how it was just before lockdown. Before lockdown, it seems.
Yeah.
So I think you shouldn't be wearing rose-tinted spectacles. I'd like to think there has some carry on, you know, our awareness, but maybe it's just that people they've been saving journeys they needed to make, hopefully, and hopefully when they've got them done, it will settle down again. But I don't know.
So you think that we're basically going back to normal, way it looks in Peckham anyway?
Well, I'm saying that at the moment it is at the sort of traffic is at the sort of level it was just before lockdown. But I'm hoping it's just because people had journeys that they were saving up.
Yeah.
You know, errands that they had been delaying and they needed to go out and do. And hopefully it'll settle back down again. But I might be being naive and optimistic with that.
We'll find out next week if it's still going on. Gary, I'm going to come to you in a second, but Ellen's had her hand up for a while, so let me go to Ellen. Go on, Ellen.
I was just going to respond to Gary actually about, obviously he's been working throughout, he's worked in the park, and of course parks were, you could visually see the impact of the announcement of the lockdown through parks, so I think you must have a really interesting perspective about how people's mood changed. I can imagine in the beginning there were some people who were out in a park, but perhaps you could really feel and see that people were a bit afraid. But then now that's changed. So I'd be interested to hear more about that. And also as well, I suppose in time we'll start to see the impact that the lockdown has had on the environment. I remember a couple of weeks ago we heard that, is it CO2 emissions, had gone down, but I'm looking forward to finding out, did the lockdown clean the air, create cleaner air, so I'd really be interested to find out about things like that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I just want to say we're going to pause this probably for about 5 minutes to do the NHS clap. Let's just get a couple of thoughts in until it's 1 minute to 9. So we've got 1 more minute, and then we'll come back about 10 past 8, depending on how long the clap goes on for. Stephen's already got some percussive instruments there. So let's just have final thoughts. Kane, have you got a final thought before we go to do the clap? No,
well, what were we talking about as I left? Was it still about travel? I mean, I do think there are some really positive things that will come out of this. I think understanding your local area more, maybe more consideration to travel, less of these massive construction projects.
Okay. Gary, you got a final thought before we go to the clap?
I don't know whether it's a thought as such. It'd be quite interesting because when we come back from the clap, I can join in for a little bit, but then have to get off. But what Ellen was saying is that, and I can come back and say more about what my experience has been like being a park ranger for these 7 or 8 weeks now, which is that I tell you what, every utterance that is made by the government, Boris Johnson, whoever, about the change is following what's happening. 6 people can gather next week out in it's happening anyway.
Yeah.
Everything that the government are doing is almost like just, we better do this because they're doing it anyway. So it's almost like that.
So it's like the people do it first and then the government follows.
No, because it is. But what I could say is, if you want, I could say a little bit more about what it's like being a
Okay, we're gonna hear about that afterwards. It's 8 o'clock. It's time to get clapping. Get your clapping hands out. We'll be back. We'll turn the camera to point it outside. We'll speak to you very shortly afterwards. I don't know, are we going to keep the video running? I guess we will, might as well. We're hearing a few beeps. Is that cheating? I don't know. We go live to outside.
Doing a pop-up talk show. Do you think people should clap for the NHS? No, don't worry.
I can't, to be honest, I can't hear any clapping outside this time.
So I don't know if you can
Once
hear
again,
me.
it
Can
could
you
be
hear
the
me
same
now?
thing with the government deciding to end it, and
can you turn me up, Mikey?
Yeah.
Maybe Rick. Maybe I'll just move slightly to this side so I can have visual with Mikey.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, right. This is super mega weird, but I'm standing on the street outside of the studio, so we've been having lots of conversations here whilst you were having other conversations, just covered in my face entirely. But it seems like there isn't much clapping going on here. There's a bell, church bell ringing, but that's it really. It's not much going on.
Okay. Yeah, there's not much over here either.
I mean,
maybe there's a clapping fatigue or what?
Is it the same thing with the government actually following the people? Because the people have decided they don't want to clap anymore.
But did it come from the people or did it come from the government that tonight is the last one?
Well, I think that's the point. I think they made the announcement maybe realising that the people had got fed up with clapping. I don't know. It's stuff to talk about in the next session once people have come back in. What's been the word out there on the street, Margot?
Okay, so the bell has stopped ringing. That's number one. But actually, funny enough, there's been a lot of conversation going on here. Just because we didn't have the camera there, it's quite hard to to kind of bring it back in, but I will try anyway. So we were talking to Sam. Sam was spending a lot of time on his PlayStation, but there's a lot of boredom going on. And then I've spoken to a man who hasn't given me his name, but he was born here in Poplar. We were talking about, for instance, oh, there he is, he's back. Yeah, he'll still not give me his name, but that's fine, I don't mind that. No, that's fine. But listen, what did we talk about? We talked about the music, the grime that started down the road.
Young people, man.
Young people. What about young people? Oh, like you mean being on TikTok and stuff?
There's young people in prison, man.
A lot of young people in prisons. But how? But do you think how can we get them out of prisons? Can we even do that?
Helicopter.
Sorry?
We need a helicopter.
Helicopter, just like lift them up. Okay, maybe. But do you think there's something that we as a community can do to, prevent young people going into prisons? Like from your, point of view.
It's got bad luck, man. You know what I mean?
It's bad luck thing.
It's 2020, yeah. The cameras, there were no cameras years ago. You know what I mean?
So what? So you're saying that maybe back in the day?
Yeah, they hiding it.
But do you think there's something that we can do as a community to prevent young people even trying? The risky stuff.
I don't know. I do it, yeah. It's just different now. I don't know. I can't explain it these days.
It's changing. It's changing.
It's changing.
Cool.
It's changing, but it's changing for the good, man.
It's changing for the good. I think that's a really good positive comment.
You know what I mean? We have to stay humble, keep praying.
Stay humble. Thanks. Still don't know his name. Hello.
So, yeah, let's get back to the chat. Well, I guess there's so many things going on all at the same time. And it is quite hard to keep track of what's going on. So, where do we want to carry on this conversation from? Do we want to talk about the somewhat muted NHS? Oh, we can see Lorna as well. Hello, Lorna. Nice to see you. Or do we want to talk about some of the other things we were talking about? Do we want to talk about the environmental issues? Do we want to talk about what we're getting from the street, which is about, I guess, the kind of what is about crime and stuff like that? So it's kind of up to you where you want to take this conversation. This is Talkioki. So where do you actually want to go with this? Gary?
Well, it's not that I want to take it anywhere, but given that nobody else is suggesting where it might go, I could tell you what my experience of the human condition has been as a park ranger for the last 7 or 8 weeks, which is, and before we went, I was saying that I quipped about the government's announcement that the next stage always seems to be kind of like following what's happening anyway. So I started Easter weekend.
Yeah.
I was asked to be. I was asked if I was interested in volunteering to be redeployed 3 days a week, generally speaking. But I said, "Yeah, will you work a weekend day?" I said, "Yeah, I don't mind working all weekend." I said that on Bank Holiday weekend, forgetting it was a Friday and a Saturday, a Sunday and a Monday.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But it's really interesting because what was happening is that all the way through, there's been people in the parks all the way through, right from the very beginning, doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Now that might be initially just sitting down. You're not supposed to sit down. Initially, you were not supposed to sit down in a park. You're supposed to only use a park for exercise.
Yeah.
You're supposed to keep moving. Now, what I was doing at that point, what we were doing as park rangers, we were instructed to move people on, whereas now we're instructed not to even challenge.
Right.
Not to even challenge anybody. But it's really interesting. Back then, you find a couple who were sat down and they say, "Excuse me, you shouldn't really be sitting here." And they said, "Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that." And they'd move on.
Yeah.
But all the way through, there's been people pushing that boundary of what it is they're supposed to do, according to the government's decree, the government's outline of what you should do. And almost everybody that I've approached, because I'm pretty good at approaching people, been fairly compliant with what I've said, but still all the way down, people have been doing what they should not be doing. Right up until last week, as I said, I found a family of 14 who were having a birthday celebration and being quite leery. I don't mean leery in a bad way, but leery and loud.
Yeah.
And I said to them, Because I went up to them and I said, "Look, you know, listen, you're breaking 3 rules here. One is how many people are you gathering." Says, but you know, you're in one of our parks and you're not allowed to have loud music, you know, amplified music, and you're not allowed to drink in it. I said, other people around have got their music, they're drinking, but you've been so leery about this. And they were very reasonable. And I came back an hour later and they kept it quiet. It's really interesting. People are kind of like doing what they're not supposed to be doing. But if you're reasonable with them, you know, still there's a conversation happening and a compliance happening. But it's just really interesting. But I've not really found in my experience, because I'm in Tower Hamlets parks, so I'm not going in parks on my days off, because I'm in it all the time at Tower Hamlets. So I live in Hackney, I'm not going, I hear that Clissold's a nightmare, I hear that Hackney Downs is a nightmare, London Fields is a nightmare, but I'm not, my experience is that despite too many people, towpaths were the worst.
Yeah.
Towpaths were definitely the worst places all the way through. But I was finding that still people were looking to be responsible in how they were behaving in the parks that I go through.
Okay, so so what do people think? Have people got fed up with this now? Have they kind of lost the plot on it? Ellen?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting to hear that perspective from somebody who, you know, was actually kind of seeing it, I suppose, in a way, you know, seeing it on the front line of things, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have forgotten about this a long time ago. I feel like the whole Dominic Cummings thing has definitely made people just care less about it. My thing is just that, like, a couple of months of restricting one's behavior will mean that we can live a freer future. That's just my thoughts, but.
What was that, Ellen? I didn't catch that last thing. What did you say?
Oh, well, I was just saying a couple of months of restricting one's movement will lead to many more years of being able to be free, and just, you know, it will allow things to get back to normal. But that's how I feel, you know?
Do you think people are failing now to see this payoff?
Yeah. Well, I feel like what it is, for me, this is what I think. I think if you are not affected by it, if you don't know anyone who's died of it, and if you weren't affected by it personally, then I feel like you just might not really think it's real, or you might not see the value of social distancing. I'm not sure if people realize that, you know, them abiding by the rules is what has led us to this day today. You know, whether or not it could have been done earlier, you know, the people who did is what led to the success that we see today.
Okay, well, I just want to try and bring John into this, because you've not said anything at all yet, John. Is your mic working? I just want to give it. I'm sure you've got something to say about this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can?
Yes.
All right. Well, it seems to me that we're all thinking about getting back not to what is normal, because I don't find anything normal about the way that we live at all, not in human terms. But what we're wanting to do is to get back to what is familiar, because then we're secure and we can do what we like within the rules and restrictions that we feel applied to us then. I think that Gary has made some very, very good observations of how people are behaving and how they do respond to the kind of approach that he has had to make. I mean, clearly, if he made an authoritarian approach to the family making a loud noise and having a lot of fun, he might very well have got some trouble, as they were having a drink as well. But a thought I would like to throw in, see if anybody picks it up. The way that we have been living, that we are thinking about as normal, is actually a way that has made us into very little else but workers, controllers of children, buyers or occupiers of housing, and shoppers. So that when suddenly a lot of those things are modified or are taken away, we have no ability whatsoever to contemplate.
Yeah.
We also have an environment in which, quite frankly, there isn't very much to contemplate anyway.
Okay, so so I guess the question that I'm not just going to ask you, John, but everybody, what else could we be? How could it be different? What's the difference, I suppose, as well, between familiar and normal? And is there any kind of normal really that isn't just simply the things that are familiar to us? So that goes out to everybody. Any responses to that? Have we got to this crisis point before COVID where we were kind of rats in the machine, for want of a better analogy?
In due time, I will come back in on that. But let's see if
let's see what other people have got to say. Yeah.
Yes, please. Is there such a thing as normal?
Yeah. Okay, Kane, you got your hand up. What's your point?
I completely agree with John in that, like, to a degree, we live in a commodified culture, a culture where there are certain goals in life, be it, owning a car, owning a house, having a family. But I guess what and obviously there are lots of people that exist outside of those structures. But I guess, in how do you break that? And to what extent do, everything at this point, with everything moving online, does it not just replicate those existing structures online?
How do you feel about it, Kane? Do you feel like it's all just been replicated online? Do you feel it's a bit more breathing space? Have you taken time to sort of contemplate a bit more, as John hopes that you have?
I personally, like, as Margot will know, as you know, Ike, like, I've been probably more busy than I normally am over this period, and I think that's the nature of working. My job's in fundraising in the art sector at a time when it's being sort of like brutalized and slightly cannibalized for a lot of organizations. So no, I definitely have breathing space. I want that breathing space, but I'm struggling to find it.
Okay, so the struggle is still very much there. What do other people think? Is there a chance? Yeah, go on.
I just wanted to jump in there and say, if anyone's watching on Facebook, feel free to chime in. I'm watching the conversation going now, and I'll share your input.
Have we got any comments from Facebook? Is there any chats or anything in the chat there?
Nothing yet, but just making people aware that they can join in at any time.
What about you, Ellen? Do you feel like we could establish like a new idea about what normality might be? Could it be something different with more contemplation, a slower normality, a less, let's say, commodity-based or commercial-based?
I feel like being forced into this position for this length of time, I feel like naturally we'll adapt to a new way of living. It probably won't be as remarkable. We may not really see the effects of it in our everyday lives yet, but perhaps in the next couple of months or years, we'll see how, people's lives have changed. But I guess I'm still working out my thoughts about this topic.
Okay, so it's going to take a bit of time. Lorna, have you got any thoughts on this?
I think, like Elam said, I think it won't maybe not happen straight away, but as the years go on, we will see a change, a difference in how we are in our societies, because they're saying that this thing is going to come back, and so people, I think at the back of people's mind, they're going to be more aware of, whether keeping their distance, I mustn't stand too close to each other, and I think maybe, although I think initially people go out when all this is maybe summer, July, August, people go out and they'll have parties, as long as people can meet together. But after that, I think people will still be observing some of these things. And normal that is not normal for me. I had to go to my cousin's funeral.
Right.
And as Black Jamaican people, we take part in the whole process of a funeral, sending home, is we're very much involved, and you couldn't. I mean, our brothers, the hearse just came to the cemetery, and we couldn't carry the coffin because we carry the pallbearers carry the coffin. We couldn't do anything, you know. And I guess that is not a normal for us. You know what I mean? It's something that is
so it was
strange.
tough. It was tough.
Yeah, you know. So so we hope that will go back to that normal that we have. And I mean, yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so there are things that are, you know, quite harsh. I think it's easy to sort of like kind of pass those things by if it hasn't happened to you personally. And especially if you're self-isolating and you're in your own bubble, it's hard to really put yourself in the position of people that have lost loved ones, or that, you know, are trying to really grieve, or, you know, do things that are really part of their world. In fact,
And one of the things as well is, I mean, the impact on all this impact on people, you know, later on, maybe, okay, people are bored now and, you know, you're fed up, but as the time go on, the years and the months go on, the impact that will have on people and children, the elderly, you know, it's quite a challenging times, really, that, you know, we've got. Yeah, so we have to find some kind of familiarity, normality, you know, somewhere, to find some kind of equilibrium.
But I mean, going back to John's point, were we rushing around too much? Were we focusing too much?
I think so. I think maybe some people reflect on, because what I said to myself, I didn't want my work to define who I am. And I think before all of this, I think people's work defined who they were in a way, because like people go to work, you start work at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and then you're not finishing until 6, 7 o'clock. You know what I mean? It's a long day, and it's like by the time you get home, you don't really have no home time, and the time you have at weekends, you're doing this, you're doing that. So, you know, there's just no time to reflect on yourself and to find who you are, really, I suppose. So yeah, I guess maybe that will maybe let people look at who they really are, you know, not for their work to define who they are.
Ellen, you've been raising your hand for quite a long time. Let me come to you. You've been desperate to come in here. So what's your point?
Well, I don't know. I think I was just sort of playing around with my my view and like the perspective of my hand and stuff. But since we're here now, I just wanted to sort of, I thought that was an interesting point from Lorna about, you know, being defined by our work. I'm just waiting for Gary Hunter to respond to my message on Facebook. It seems he just needs to finish off his point maybe, but I just wanted to change the conversation a little bit. We just got from clapping for carers. I did, this is an act that I just don't do anymore. I did it the first time, but I didn't do it again because, you know, I just felt it was patronizing, and I couldn't help but just feel that many of the people clapping are just hypocrites, you know, because walking around, you know, you just don't see people following any rules whatsoever. And I found that clapping just made me really angry. I've never felt this level of anger before, you know, seeing what's happening to the doctors, the nurses who are passing away, but then people are clapping, but they also are not following. They also were not following any of the rules. I just couldn't take the hypocrisy of it all. So it's not an activity that I partake in, but I'm interested to find what other people kind of think about that.
Okay, so it seems to make you feel angry, and there seems to be, I mean, the word hypocrisy has come up a lot recently. Are we really feeling it for the carers? We've got a participant outside, so we're just going to switch over, see if we can bring them into the conversation. So Are you ready, Margot, out there?
Yes. So we've got Aliyah here. I'm trying to find my way here into the camera, but we have been talking about lockdown, haven't we, a little bit? So what do you make of this lockdown? Are you enjoying things about it, or is it annoying?
I feel good at home, but I don't feel good because I can't go outside much. And yeah, see my family and my family. But I feel good at home because I get to watch TV and play. Yeah.
So is that very different to how everything was before?
Yeah.
And what about this question? Can you just ask, have you been clapping for the carers? Did you clap for the NHS?
Yeah, I've been clapping.
And did you clap this time as well?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think it's a good thing to do? And why are you doing it?
To save lives.
Okay, so are we doing well in terms of obeying the rules and in terms of actually?
Yeah.
So you think we're doing a good job?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are doing well. What's your name again?
Aliyah.
Ania's saying we are doing well. She's still clapping for the carers and feels like she's doing she's getting to watch more TV as well.
I want to ask Aliyah something. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about schools opening up? Do you think that's good or maybe not so good?
Well, it's good for learning, but I like spending more time at home.
Okay. So when you spend time at home, do you think, what about your parents? Do they feel good about the lockdown? What do you think their views are?
I'm not so sure.
Why are you not sure?
I don't know.
Do you think it may be a bit harder for them? Or maybe it's really pleasant to have the whole family together all the time. Not sure. That's really good. So you live here in the area? Oh, just
anyway,
locally.
we're going to spin it back to the conversation and
we're going to go back to the table.
Try and involve Ania in the conversation with the people that are here online as well. So I guess, how do we link it to what we were talking about, which was, I guess, about Ellen's sort of feeling that people are not obeying the rules, that that there's a lot of hypocrisy.
I kind of want to ask the parents, in a way, guys, do you think that around Tower, this is Tower Hamlets, but around this area in Aberfeldy, have people been good, sticking to the rules? Do you want to say in the mic? Don't be scared. I mean, Aliyah did it. Yeah, no.
Okay, let's just go back. We'll come back into you again, Margot, later on. But let's go back to the online audience. What do you think about that, Ellen?
I guess I was just going to say, sometimes I find it interesting just looking back at how my viewpoint changed of the whole thing. I remember on the night of the lockdown, I went to a pub, even though, a lot of people, I went to a pub just for one last drink, and, I didn't really want to accept the realities of it. And now I've turned into that person that's like, looking at people not condemning the rules. So sometimes I just feel like, I've turned into a bit of I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting seeing how.
Ellen?
A couple of months.
I just lost you there. Can you just say that again?
Oh, no, I was just saying it's interesting seeing how my viewpoint has changed over the last couple of months, really.
Yeah.
Now I'm very much like, I hate to use the term obeying the rules. I find that term is also quite cringing, and it's maybe it's a bit patronizing as well, but but then again, I guess people are following what the government's saying. I mean, can you trust them? That Dominic Cummings guy, I mean, that is just such a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's all a bit of a mess, really.
Yeah, you're feeling like it's a bit of a mess out there. What do other people think? Is it a bit of a mess? John, Kane, Lorna, Stephen?
Yes, I'll come in on that.
Yeah.
I think it is fair to say that it is a bit of a mess. It would be a much better mess and a much more acceptable mess if our leaders were able to say, we can't get everything right because it's not really a very well-trodden pathway, this. If there were some level of willingness to be contrite, to say, sorry, we haven't got that one right, we need to change it. But hierarchies are hierarchies, and when they falter, they tend to make even more mistakes to buttress the position they have at the top of the ladder. That seems to be what's going on now. And I think I would like to add a comment about, that goes back to what I said about our being thrust back on our contemplative abilities and finding that we've got nothing to work on. I mean, what is, to my mind, normal is to do all the things we're very familiar with, like growing up, learning, having family, having affections, having relations, having people we love and like, and places we know. But after that, the life of normality includes quite a lot of creativity, that people are naturally very creative. I would urge those of you who don't quite follow what I'm saying to look at children. I mean, I'm corresponding with a friend and being shown work done by a 5.5-year-old child who has illustrated for me what is rich and what is poor. Well, she's not being taught that at school, but has created that entirely for herself. I'm afraid there is a great deal of our schooling which will spend another 5 years beating it out of her to make sure that she does not think as clearly as that, because otherwise she will not grow up to be a good consumer unit, which is what we all depend upon our economy to make us.
Are they still allowed to beat
What's
children?
happening now, Mikey, what's happening now is that we ought to be saying, well, I've got to put my nose down. I can't go rushing out. I can't go to the pub, Ellen. I agree with you. I wish I could, but I can't. We can't do all those things which we enjoy, but I can create. And in actual fact, I'm a lucky guy because I've got nothing else to do but create, and I can still do it, and I've got the facilities for it. Most of us have not. We are devoid of things that we can do that create. As a result, we go out and create nonsense in the streets and the parks and cause quite a lot of fuss. And we are very critical of people like friends of government who seem to be behaving in a way that actually is quite similar to our own.
Okay, are we actually being hypocritical by criticising some of these government people? Okay, let's go to Kane. What's your point?
I feel like it's really difficult to follow on from John.
Well, the challenge is there.
I guess again back to John. Is like, is there a way of people kind of breaking the cycle of being a consumer unit to bringing more creativity into their lives? And also just agreeing with the previous point, I do think there is a real need for, it's the thing you never get in politics, and it's always really refreshing when you get it, is like actually just a bit of transparency and honesty, and sometimes being able to put your hands up and be like, yeah, it's really hard, we're not entirely sure what the answer is.
Do you think this government was able to do that? How would the response have been if they'd have been a bit more honest?
I think it probably would have been better. I mean, you know, like you look at the sheer hypocrisy of the Dominic Cummings incident at the moment, where like no one can, you know, the core of the party can't speak out of line, despite it being quite an absurd situation. And there is this, you know, it's felt like for the last few weeks, this massive disconnect of like, oh, we're doing really great, things are getting a lot better. And then just looking at a global scale, we have like more per capita deaths than any other country.
So, okay, so we're being told we're doing really well, but we're not, it's not really happening.
There's just a disconnect between what's being said and what is blinding the reality.
Okay, so the dissonance is, I guess, greater than ever before. I mean, it goes back to, I think somebody said it's a bit of a mess. Have we got somebody outside? Have we got a question outside that's going to get thrown into this? Do bear with us. This is a little bit experimental, so do bear with us. Let's see who we've got outside and what they've got to say.
Okay, I hope everyone can see us. So come closer to the microphone. First of all, what's your name?
Ikhlas.
Ikhlas. So we've got Ikhlas, and I think you've got a question to ask the table, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, if you say it nice and clearly and loudly into the microphone, we can ask everyone on the chat.
When will lockdown be over?
Did everybody get that? Did everybody?
Question?
Yes.
You can go even louder.
When will lockdown be over?
When will lockdown be over? Let's see.
When will lockdown be over? That's a very good question.
When will lockdown be over? Any thoughts about this?
I wonder. Oh, you've got our cards.
And
Do you
how
want to
will
take
it
a
be
card?
over
Hang
as
on.
well? We've got a queue of people now. I can see Danny in the background.
Hello, Danny. Hello, we're just having a little camera there. So
there has to be a queue. What a any? Okay, you're the panel of experts now, guys. You've been thrust into the role of being experts. See how you like it. Anyone want to ask this one? When will lockdown be over?
I don't know how to take it. I can't. I don't know how to take it off the thing. Okay, let me just find out what they're saying.
Anyone want to answer that? John, you going to give us a...
I really don't think I could give a prediction because there is this threat of the second wave in front of us, and we do not know the answer to that. I'm cautious about it because it certainly could happen.
Yeah.
But that will only be tested out in the next month. It's going to be a cautious month. I'm sorry, my dear, I can't give you a prediction of when lockdown will be completely over.
Okay, so no predictions. No one wants to answer. No one wants to answer this question because nobody knows. How do you feel about that outside? How do you feel about that? Nobody knows. We don't know. How do you feel about that?
What do you think of that?
Yeah. Scary.
Scary. It's scary. Okay, what about that, panel? This is a scary moment. We need some reassurance here. Kane, are you going to say something?
Very good. Well done, Ikhlas.
I was going to say, I mean, though we don't know when lockdown's going to be over, I guess we do know that it will probably get a little bit easier. And a few things that open up. And sort of, more shops will open. There'll be more options to meet up with friends, but it will probably take quite a while to kind of go back completely to normal, and it might not go back completely to normal ever.
Do you find it scary?
Do I find it scary? I don't think so. I'm sort of used to it now. I'm just not seeing people, and there are people that, friends that don't live in this country that it's really open-ended, family that live in other countries, very open-ended of whether I'll see them again.
Okay, so any response to that outside? No? Okay.
We've had some conversations. Can I ask you a question? Thank you very much, okay.
Okay, we'll come back to you in a second.
Fatima here earlier.
Yeah.
And we were talking.
Yeah, go on.
Because I'm crouching. And we were talking about young people. That you were saying there's a lot of young people here in the area, and maybe your daughters as well, with hidden talent, and that they need their confidence boosted. And I just wanted to ask you, what do you think we could do to help young people be more confident? Would you say it on the microphone? Oh, speaking of confidence, yeah, go on.
We have like an event where everyone can show their talent as a community.
Okay. You're.
Come closer to the microphone. Sorry. Yeah, go.
Yeah, it would be nice once the pandemic is over, or before, or isolate ourselves for now. But after, it would be nice seeing everyone having their talents out here, and then maybe it can just, as a community, we can all come together. Like before, we used to go to the community centre, like the mothers, and in the morning we get kids to school, and then sit down, everyone cooks, have breakfast, kids playing. It was, I don't know, right now, I guess everyone's isolating, so it's not really much of a community, is it?
Can we develop the confidence of young people when they're isolating? Is there a way of doing it when people are in lockdown?
I wish I knew the answer. I don't know. Maybe we could. If you ask
Okay,
more
well,
parents,
what we're going to do is we're going to ask the panel and see if they're going to come back to this.
yeah, actually,
we have got this online.
I'm sure
panel.
more parents have more ideas than me. So.
Anyone got any thoughts on that from the panel?
Yes.
Yeah, go on, John.
Yes. One of the things that we have done, and I think it's a great mistake, in the past 20 years, to my certain knowledge, a lot of what has been promoted and provided for in and around the community here is dedicated to what are perceived to be the interests of individuals. What has not happened, to a great extent, has been obliteration of what happens with groups of people. Now, I think community life, by definition, is what happens to a group of people. And I don't think that hierarchical powers have the ability to decide what is good for a group. It's the group that decides on that. So I agree with this family here, but it would be very good to see that they have some initiative, some right to determine what happens, and that it should be multi-generational, because that's what we need. We need the cohesion of families and the creativity of the individuals.
Okay, so good point there. Any response from outside? No? Do we want to bring Danny in on this? He's been standing in the background for about 10 minutes. Maybe we want to bring... Hello? How are you doing? Just say hello to Danny.
Yeah.
People online, can you say hello to Danny? Can you hear him?
Can anyone hear me? Hi there, John.
Give him a wave.
Yeah, I've just come over from the pub, so I'm quite alright. Sorry, Mike?
Is the pub open?
No, it's shut, it's shut.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions on the table. We're talking a lot about, are we seeing community differently now? Should we be seeing ourselves as more of a group rather than individuals? Are we going to grow, evolve, change, adapt in this time? These are some of the questions that we're talking about right now. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think there'd be different measures.
Yeah.
Everyone be a bit more cautious now and a bit more, I think this will make us wiser.
But, learned anything though?
Well, it would only make us wiser for about a couple of months, and then we were slipping back to our old habits. Really, it's not
because one of the things that John is saying is that we need to sort of move out of the rat race.
Yeah, yeah. See, what's going to happen is like the toilet roll incident. The first, when it all goes back to normal, everyone will be rushing, crowding the place and panicking. But just hold the horses and wait a little while, and then it'll just all phase out, like past the curve and everything.
We need to be patient, is basically your message.
Yeah, patience. Patience is the key to this, really.
Okay, cool. So, patient. Stephen, you got a point over there, yeah?
I'm hoping we won't see the degree of panic buying that we saw, but I think it's wise to make sure we've got in our houses enough food for 2 weeks.
Just in case.
Yeah, because we could, at any moment, we could get the call, no, you have to self-isolate for 2 weeks. Especially if you're living alone. I mean, I don't want people having to shop for me.
Yeah.
A bag of rice and a bag of lentils can see me out for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you might get a bit fed up with it after a while, but...
Well, I've been living off it for 2 months, mate, so...
Yeah. Okay, so, I mean, what do you think about this thing is that we kind of we have ridden the wave. I mean, I think that's what Danny's saying, that we have ridden the wave, and we've just got to be patient on this one. We've got to have faith. What do people think about that? Do we agree with what Danny's saying? Lorna, were you going to make a point? Oh, we lost Lorna, yeah?
Oh, no, I was going to say that how to motivate or to build confidence in young people in this time, I guess, because a lot of young people, they have their phones and, now people isolating. Yeah. It's basically, I think, to tap into things that are positive, because there's a lot of positive things that's going on the internet. And even, maybe people, well, I don't know if you're supposed to, I see people playing football in the park just now. Yeah. So, and maybe even to just talk to your friends and, people you're close to, so that, you get that motivation to carry on, you know what I mean? And I think after this, I think people will probably realize, well, the community, even maybe people were dispersed, I don't know, but maybe people will come back and think that, well, we have to build this community because we don't know how, we don't know. Everything's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. So people maybe try to make a bit more effort to come together, like, I think.
Okay, so this could be allowing people to have put a bit more effort into the community. Maybe they'll have more of a sense of the community rather than just themselves. Kane, you had a point?
Yeah, I was kind of interested, like, from Danny, from your perspective, like, are you going to be like down the Tommy Flowers the second it opens?
Can I give you a card? Because we're going live on
That was one for you, Danny. Did you hear it?
So I didn't hear it, Tom.
Okay, are you going to be down at Tommy Flowers as soon as it opens?
Oh, yeah.
You will be.
I'm not scared of nothing.
Okay. So as soon as the doors are open, you're going to be out there.
I'll be getting me immunity with alcohol.
Okay. I mean, are people going to be... have you been following the rules by and large? And have other people been around where that you've observed?
Yeah, I've been following. I've been like a church mouse. I've been indoors all the time. Yeah. I've not seen no one.
Okay.
You're a role model.
Perfect role model.
There we go. Danny's been the role model over there.
No one's not seen me for weeks. They thought I was dead.
Okay, so...
my sex life's ruined. It's all gone, so...
Have you got a point, Ellen, there? Yeah.
Yes.
Go on, Ellen.
Yeah, just following on from what John was saying about the community decide, what happens in their life, not the government. It just reminded me of the government initiative, the government call for volunteers, NHS volunteers, and how that wasn't successful. However, the local mutual aid groups have been very successful. And they were saying that is has been better. There's been a better response from that than what it is that because people are in the community, they know what the community needs, so therefore they've been able to respond to the vulnerable people quicker and more effectively. While something coming from the government, that NHS scheme, it's very distant, and many of the volunteers weren't being contacted very often, and they just didn't really feel like it was they didn't really feel as useful as they were once they joined the mutual aid group. So I just sort of following on from John's point.
Okay, so what you're saying, it's gone more local, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so just more about how communities, what the successful things that happen in the community come from the community, not from the government. And and it is a very local thing, I guess. I suppose it's going back to that whole people choosing local. And at a time of need, people did have to stay local. I mean, there was no choice to stay local, but people had to lean on the local community.
Okay, Kane, what's your point?
Yeah, that back with David Cameron, there was like a whole massive government push for more devolution to a local level, more community people take role, which didn't work. I mean, mostly because it was also at the same time all about cutting government funding to services and not replacing it with anything, and saying actually we can just do this on a volunteer workforce. And I think there is something really interesting about the fact that, stuff that comes from these big machines, be it government or these big organizations, it can't move and respond rapidly enough, and always falls flat on its face, like the track and trace stuff at the moment. And actually there is a real argument for the clusters, those mutual aid, those cooperative activities, how important they are. Like I would love to see, it's less of a thing in the UK, but in the US it's definitely a bigger thing, things like cooperative food stores. Like there's a venue that we were speaking about at the earlier Talkie Farnham Maltings, where they've set up like a lending library where people in the community can donate anything. I think the death knell is getting any sort of government backing of it. I mean, maybe the thing to do is for the government to be telling us to do things that we shouldn't be doing, because we probably would then not do them.
Okay, so in a way, it's like reverse psychology for the government.
Yeah, that could be a good approach.
Whatever the government doesn't tell us to do. So if they say to us, "Oh, don't do anything voluntarily," we will start doing stuff. But okay, is that kind of what they're trying to do right now? Really, is there a bit of reverse psychology going on with the government?
Or do you think the Dominic Cummings thing's a whole deliberate ploy? So that we're
is there some kind of weird psychological game going on? Any comments out there about this? Yeah.
If people start breaking the rules now, it's just gone on too long, really. So I say live and let live. Everything.
You don't hold anything against Dominic Cummings?
No, I don't hold a grudge with anyone, really. He's not in my life, so he ain't going to have an effect on me, really.
Right.
But, I say people, because the people have been locked away so long now, it is a mental health issue. Now, it's a bit of a release just to go and speak to someone, your own family members, anyone. Just to get out of the house would be nice. So anyone, politicians don't have no influence on my life, really. I don't care, and it's just, I like Conservative. I do like Boris Johnson. I like him as a thingy, but they just don't care. What they do have no effect on my life whatsoever.
Doesn't affect your life. Let's get some response from the web audience. Anyone? Ellen?
I mean, but just in response to, sorry, I forgot, is David?
Danny.
Just in response to Danny, but do you not think that, like, the fact that, the country went into lockdown a couple of months ago, that has an impact on our life? You know what I mean? I mean, the fact that only now, next week, we're allowed to meet up with 6 people, socially distanced, doesn't that, they do have an impact on our lives. So I'm quite interested to hear what you feel about that. I suppose, so no matter what, even if you don't think about the government, they still have a certain level of control over us.
So you're saying the politicians do have an impact on your life? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay.
Really, it's just because this is like self-help is medication, really. So if you're you need to get out of your bubble to get back into socialising, because we have all been reclused. And see, that's why I don't even watch the media anymore. I don't watch Good Morning TV, the news. It's just gone. It's just like a dud moment now, because everything is rammed into us through fear. I know this is a very serious thing. But it's life, and this is how we've got to live with it, really. So I'm a gambler, so I take my chances.
Okay.
Dead or alive, long-term death.
Yeah.
I am.
How do you feel about Boris Johnson gambling with your health and your and the nation's health?
As I said, I don't know Boris personally, but it ain't going to have no effect on me. So. Yeah. See, Boris is just a puppet within whatever's controlling Boris, the Black Hand. Dominic Cummings, yes, it's they're all puppeteers. It's secret societies that have a say. And that we think we're in a democracy, we're not.
Okay, let's just move this back to the panel then. See any response to that. Ellen, back to you again.
Yeah, back to me. I agree with you, Danny, about the impact, the mental health impact that this has had on people. And I think we're only going to see the impact that being locked up is going to have had on the nation in the next couple of weeks. I definitely feel like, when I first left my house, it felt amazing. It felt so good to even doing talkie-okies and interact with other people. It felt really good, and it showed that as humans we do need to interact with some people. So I mean, I'm happy that I made the sacrifice of chilling out at home for a couple of weeks, but and I will be willing to do that again if it means it's going to benefit the community. But also, you know, I'm aware that staying in for so long, it can have a negative impact on one's mental health. So
okay, so are we balancing the mental health? Is the government got that right? Are they aware of the mental health side? Somebody else come in on this one. John, have you got a point on this, the mental health of the nation? Can we talk about that? Hang on, yeah. John, I don't think we can, you're not unmuting for some reason. We lost you now, John. Okay, one down.
Unmute. Yeah, I've got
okay,
can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to be really very, very clear about this. What we think is a great burden of mental ill health is in no way mental ill health. What it is the consequence of pressures in our executive life, what we are told we need to do, what we want to do, what we can do, what we can't do. All those pressures actually hurt a portion of the population who are just not up to living with those pressures all the time. So we call it ill health and say, well, it's not us, it's them. It's not. It's the way that we are governed, the way that our lives are ruled, makes it impossible for a high proportion to remain in good health. Actually, the dividing line for good health mentally is mostly money. If you have it, you can cope with most of the pressures that are placed upon you. If you don't have it, you are at risk.
What about now, though? What about the mental health now? Is it still the same situation that it's about the pressures?
No, it's getting worse, and it's the same thing. It is the pressures of having nothing to do.
Yeah.
You remember the poem, the hump you get from having too little to do? And a lot of people have got that. They're blaming themselves. They can't find an easy way out of it. And that is expressing itself in distress in the form of anxiety, depression, all minor stuff, but very significant in modern life.
Okay, so strong words. Can you hear out there, Danny? Yeah, go on.
Say it on this one?
Yeah.
On this?
Yeah.
So you can be on this side. I was just going to say that apropos of solitude we were talking about earlier, apparently back in the day people were sent to, to desert or somewhere to experience solitude as some kind of punishment, but some people found it like Jesus and other people went to people just went to find wisdom, and it takes like few days to kind of like to break and then really find your strength from it. And I wonder whether that's something that's attainable in lockdown, which is not exactly what people were talking about. It wasn't the point that John made, but yeah, I just kind of wonder whether solitude, whether we have passed the kind of moment of solitude being a negative thing, and can we see it as a positive thing?
Okay, so
what do you think of solitude?
A positive thing.
Do you think it's a good thing or not so good?
John, we've lost your video, so don't know if you can turn your video
back on
just
again. Solitude. We were just saying that people sometimes used to go into the desert as a punishment, but some found enlightenment in the desert.
Okay, what? Yeah.
Where do I go to get my video?
Do you think that's ever possible,
bottom
like
left,
in the busy life that we lead, or maybe during the pandemic?
Down to the bottom left, there'll be a camera which will say start video.
So do you think it's positive effect of lockdown?
Yes, you're back again. You're back in the room. Yeah.
Yeah. This question of solitude that Margot raises is very interesting. I think that we have to, in our day, we have to relearn how to deal with solitude. And there are no easy ways to do that. You can see this from the popularity of programs coming up online. Pay this money and we will teach you how to meditate. We will teach you yoga. We will teach you self-improvement, because we have to relearn about solitude. It's even as short a time ago as when I was young, what you did was to think about something. You went for a walk on the beach or in the woods and thought about it. I didn't need any training in doing this. Now, I think I would have to learn how to deal with solitude if I didn't already know.
Let me get a final thought from you, Danny, before you go.
Everyone stay safe, look after yourselves, and be your own peace of mind. I'll see you all later. See ya. Right, see you all. See ya.
Thank you, Danny.
But we've got Shafi here. We were talking about solitude here on the side, and I just kind of, because can you say a little bit what you said about solitude in lockdown? And
yeah, I was just saying that, like, in solitude, in lockdown or any time, I think it's important for us as human beings to step outside of the noise and everything and spend some time alone, find ourselves, reflect, and I think that's really important, self-reflection, being comfortable with not being lonely but being alone sometimes. But obviously, like you said, what would you say to people who find that very difficult? I think it's because we're not used to it. We always need the TV on or something on the phone.
or at least we think we need it.
Or we think we need it, but actually it's really important for human beings to take a break and to find themselves, think, reflect. But obviously not for prolonged times, maybe that's difficult, but even if it's for a short time. Yeah.
And what is your sense, because you live locally, right?
Yeah.
What is your sense, what is the feeling in the community? What are people thinking about? Is it breaking community down more, or are people feeling more keen to...
I think people are valuing family, people are valuing community, people are valuing human relationships. That's what this pandemic's taught us, that you can't live without other human beings and the connections and the support. So I think all that is important. Yeah. And it's on a bigger scale, it's making us question the way most of us are living, you know, globally, nationally, regionally, the waste, what we're doing to the environment, the inequalities, all of this is coming to light because it's making us think that, you know, there is inequality in society. There are people who are disproportionately affected by the pandemic. So it's making us reflect on the bigger questions, if you like. I hope it does anyway. I hope people don't just go back to normal and everything's the same.
I mean, you've pretty much summed up all the things we've been talking about tonight, to be honest.
Great.
And that, I mean, but how's it been for you personally?
I think it's been, because I'm working from home, you know, I'm connected with my relatives, friends and everything. I'm here local, there's a community here. It's been fine, to be honest. In the beginning, probably a little bit difficult to adjust. And we had the month of Ramadan last month. So it was challenging, but it was very, very positive in many respects as well. Yeah.
Can I just let's see if we've got any, because we've got an online audience.
Oh, right. Okay. What is this, just live on Facebook?
It's live,
okay.
It's live on Facebook. These are the people watching here.
Okay.
So what's your name?
Shafi. I'm local.
Has anyone got any questions for Shafi? Ellen has. We've got a lot of questions.
All right, you're going to get questions.
If you don't mind, we'll just see what
no problem.
Let me come to Stephen first. What's your question? Hang on. Yeah, go on.
Not so much a question, but
a great idea.
Do you know, we've been doing it for a while.
Go on, Stephen. Yeah.
All right. Not so much a question, but a comment. Lockdown doesn't have the same effect on everybody. Some people might be isolated and have to come to terms with loneliness or being alone. Others might be in a very crowded household, so that it might have the opposite effect. They can't get away and be alone. They have to. They might be self-isolating with their families, can't get away. And it's, I've got a friend in that position.
So you don't always get the chance to be alone, and in a way you could be more crowded out than ever before.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a comment there. Let's go to Ellen as well. Ellen, what's your point?
I just wanted to ask Shafi a question, actually.
Yeah.
Ramadan, it ended this weekend gone. What impact did the current global crisis have on your celebration of during the month of Ramadan? And how did, obviously this week was the ending, what was that like, celebrating the ending during this difficult time in history?
I mean, it must have been a unique one. Did you hear that,
Yeah.
Shafi? Yeah.
Of the whole month, Ramadan is usually a very communal month because every evening, you break fast with your own family, and then you get invites every other day, to break fast with other people, relatives, friends. And then whole evening, all the mosques are open and people go and pray at night in the mosque.
Yeah.
So all that was missing this Ramadan. And it's probably, it's the first time I've experienced this in my whole life. I'm sure many people, it's the first time they experience that. Secondly, the celebrations, because Eid Day, it's very much like Christmas celebrations. The whole family gets together, all your relatives, family, friends. But this time round, we couldn't do that. So it was a very kind of somber, quiet Eid, if you like. It was a very different Eid. But at the same time, thank God for technology. People used video online, WhatsApp, Zoom, to link up with their families and relatives. So yeah, definitely it was a very, very different Ramadan. I guess on a positive note, it allowed people to improve their relationship with God on their own terms at home, rather than in a big congregation. Sometimes it can become formal and robotic and automated. So I think it had that positive effect as well. Yeah.
Do you think people will be doing things differently now? When we come out of lockdown, we've heard tonight, nobody knows when that's going to happen. But
yeah.
A lot of people on here have been saying we're going to have a different perspective. We're going to be doing things differently. We have different concerns. Do you think that, or do you think we'll be back to what we were before?
I'd like to think people will have a different perspective. I like to think that, just in terms of how people work, what's possible, what's not possible, remote working and things like that. Even meetings, you often thought in the past, even though we had the technology, we just wouldn't do video conferencing. We just thought it's a hassle, just call physical meetings. But now I think even the way we work, basic things will change, I hope. I guess I'd like to think things will change, but I also know we're creatures of habit, so we probably slip back into.
It's going to gradually slip back.
Yeah, go back into what we're used to.
Let me just see, if you don't mind, let me just go back to the panel and see if they've got any other questions.
All right, if not, then I can hear.
It's a bit weird standing out there. This is experimental.
No problem, no problem. There's someone's got their hand up.
For Shafi, there's a question from Ellen and from John as well, so maybe we'll go two at a time. Go on, Ellen, first.
Well, I don't know if John has a question for Shafi. I have just a question for Shafi and everyone really in this chat right now. So maybe you can go to John first. If John
I'll go to John and then come John. What's your question? What's your point?
Well, I think that mine is not so much a question as a comment. I thought of it when you were speaking earlier, Shafi. It's simply that I profoundly agree with everything that you started off by saying, because I was saying that we have to learn to be in solitude before we can find what rewards it will bring to us. And you were saying exactly the same thing. My only question is, does this depend entirely upon the teaching of religious leaders? Because to an extent, those of us who are not brought up and taught in the Muslim faith have lost out because our leaders are slightly more distant from us than are yours. And yet the need for understanding solitude and what it may bring to us is still there.
Okay, any response to that, Shafi? Let me bring you back in on that one.
Yeah, I just didn't catch the last bit.
What it was saying is I'll try and.
I caught the first bit.
That our leaders, the non-Muslim leaders, maybe not as close to their people, and not maybe got that connection where they can set that example and have that kind of face that solitude as a question of solitude.
Right.
Easily.
Right.
Fair to say, John?
Yeah, yes, it's really rather saying that, is this dependent entirely on profession and pursuit of a particular religious faith?
I think it can be. It can be because, for example, for a lot of the Muslims, a lot of their imams were emphasizing on the issue of, spending time with family at home, and Islam obviously places a lot of emphasis on the family unit, and also supporting neighbors and things like that. So in a way, I guess, yes, that helps, definitely. But I don't think you have to rely on religion only. I mean, a lot of people, even want to go and meditate and things like that, spiritual solace, and want to find themselves in those kind of respect. But yeah, I guess because the support is there from the imams, and the teachings are there as well, in terms of having that peace and quiet, if you like, on your own, talking to your creator and things like that, that's promoted. So I guess that helps. The structures are there, the meanings are there as well. It's not just, sitting at home and worrying and thinking, oh, I'm alone, what do I do with my time? So I guess that helps.
Thank you. Okay, so where are we going to go with this?
Now we get the live.
So I think I agree with you entirely.
Okay, so more agreement there. We've got George back in. A lot's happened since you've been gone, to be honest, George. We've been experimenting with our on the street format. We're gradually getting a bit more slick at it.
I've actually watched a little bit on Facebook Live, and it looks very good. So
okay, fantastic, good. Okay, so I don't need to fill you in on what's been going on.
A little bit, but I mean, I'm saying the format's working.
Okay, well that's good. Have you got a point there, Margot, as well? Because you were.
Can you hear me with this?
When you start talking to us, I'll just turn up your thing. Yeah.
Fine. Do you know what? I think this pandemic has certainly made me a bit more, care less for how things turn out and be just a bit more experimental. And certainly with Tokyoki tonight, and so far, we've done it in such a different way. And actually, tonight, when we got a hang of it, it was so nice chatting to people. This is the kind of quality of conversation that I've been missing, and I'm glad that we were able to do it in some ways. But of course, there's lots of room for improvement as well. And we've got lots of provocations from people from last week. But I think the community spirit is out there, and it's just been so great chatting to people. Like, for instance, there was a family, they were interested in what we were doing, so intuitively I gave them the card, and then I thought, probably should offer them a hand gel as well, which I did, and the whole family did their hands, and we kind of waved goodbye. So everything's just a little bit weird, but it's also all right,
familiar, I guess.
Familiar, yeah.
Okay, let's just bring it back to the online panel. Where do we take this, Ellen?
I had a question about the contact tracing app. My question was, are people going to download it? But before I get into that, there is an input from quite a lot of input that's just come through from Gary Hunter. I think it all seems to have come through at once, Gary. So, okay, I can see that you said that you had issues with the internet. So that explains it. Yeah. But, Gary is in rural Italy right now. Right. And one of the things he says is that, after the best part of 6 months in rural Italy, he's discovered quite a lot, a new normal. He says that he's surrounded by nature, 70-year-old oak trees, he's growing tomatoes, and he's really living off the fat of the land. Yeah. On the subject of Cummings, he pointed out that Cummings and the worst nightclub in the world, you can find out about that on Vice and FHM. So, if you can't run a nightclub, then I don't know how Cummings can do anything for us, But yeah, and he's asking, how do people feel about the FT headline tonight? But I'm not sure
what is that headline?
Is it UK opens door to citizenship to over 300,000 Hong Kong residents?
Right.
Okay. All right.
Interesting.
I haven't seen that headline.
Okay, that's throwing a lot in, and I'll just remind the audience here, it's up to you to decide which way you want to take this conversation. Now, it feels like we're kind of closing down outside, so it might be worth as well giving Ellen a go at hosting in the middle. It's a bit hard when we've got stuff happening live here, but I feel that that's over now. So let me just get this point from Kane, and then maybe, Ellen, you want to do a little bit of hosting yourself, if you're up for it.
Yeah, I will be able to do it for a short while. Definitely. Unfortunately, my fridge has broken down, so I need to, work that out. But I'll be happy to jump in.
What's happened to your fridge?
A couple of minutes. Unfortunately, it's broken. It's broken. So
have you got a
all of the all of the frozen.
Yeah.
No. All of the frozen veg. Yeah. Okay.
Stephen. We got a final thought, I think, from Stephen.
Yeah. Have you tried turning your fridge upside down?
Why? How does that help?
It resettles the coolant. Sometimes you get an airlock or a gas lock in the coolant. It's
okay. George is also saying that as well.
It works again.
Oh.
Okay, so there's a point from there, and George is concurring with that as well. So
thank you for that tip.
Before you chuck it out, try turning it upside down.
I mean, I think I might need an extra helping hand, but because I'm isolating, I'll have to.
Best to empty it first.
I'll cover myself in plastic and come over. But anyway, we'll deal with that later.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen.
Let's go to Kane. What's your point, Kane?
I've got to head off now.
Okay, give us a final thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to live off the fat of the land. I've been attempting to forage. I foraged in a cemetery, which apparently you're not meant to do.
Why are you not meant to do that? Is it just
apparently there can be arsenic in the ground? But saying that, Margot sent me a link to a foraging class online, which was specifically in a cemetery.
Right.
So, are you allowed to? I don't know. Maybe I'll leave you on that. Are you allowed to forage in cemeteries? Or
okay, well, that's a big question. I don't know if we're going to have time to go into. I feel like we've kind of gone everywhere tonight. We've gone to the cemetery. We've gone to thank you, Kane. We'll see you later. Thanks for joining in. We've seen a lot of Kane today. Where are we going to take this conversation? We've got 15 minutes left. I think Ellen, can you give us 15 minutes? And if you want to host it?
Yeah, definitely.
And then
sure, definitely.
I can say my bit as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Fair enough then. All right, cool. I'll jump in. All right, so... okay. Oh, it's Mikey. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that I just couldn't hear Mikey, but you're just not talking. All right. So where do we want to go with this conversation? For the people that's just joined in, I see there's a couple of people watching on the whole Facebook chat. Where do we want to take this conversation? Mikey, do you have any responses to anything that you've heard today? Because you've just been sitting there quietly. What about yourself, Margot? You've been hearing it from us, from the streets, from all now, or you've been hearing what people have been saying? Okay, let me unmute you. Boom, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Perfect.
Oh, wonderful. So basically, I've been in a lot of conversations tonight. We're talking about the origin of grime. We're talking about crime. We're talking about young people down on the street. And we had a pilgrimage all the way down memory lane from my land as well. There's a young guy. So there's some people outside wanting to join on. There's a lot going on here.
Wow.
Sorry,
it sounds really lively. It
was very lively. We had some late coming crowd coming to Tokyoki. But yeah, we were talking about what to do, about young people's confidence as well. So I feel like, there's been a lot of on the table. Like crime was a big one with one of the people.
Right.
Sure.
Right. I see. I mean, do you have any? You know what? I want to bring in George actually, because I know you arrived not that long ago. So you must. Do you have any anything to say about what you've heard so far? You know, what has your whole experience been like over the last couple of months? As you probably heard, we spoke about, you know, whether or not people are, you know, rules. You know, we had a park ranger in earlier. What has been observed and how people have been acting in the park. I mean, do you have anything to say about anything you've heard so far tonight?
Not a great deal really, but you know, you asked me what I've been doing. I am fortunate enough I can work from home. I'm a computer nerd, so I'm just I got myself out of London a couple of months ago, and just spending some time in the country. But it's not really in the country because I'm just looking at these screens as normal. But I mean, it's like a global pause button has been pushed. It's been a very, to answer your question, right? It's to say that it's given one pause for thought is an understatement. Like everyone has been able to consider what is what's important and what isn't, and you can only really do that when you're not doing anything else. And of course, you know, that's it. You know, I've been happy to say I'm healthy in that, but you know, I don't know. What can I add?
Yeah, well, it sounds to me that you escaped to the countryside a couple of months ago. You're still healthy, but you're still sitting in front of a computer screen. So, yeah, no, that's. I mean, but have you had any time to reflect? I know that you said you haven't really got to experience much of the countryside, even though you did take yourself there a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, you sort of broke up a bit there.
Okay. Have you got to experience much of the countryside? You said that you took yourself there a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out on my bike every day and you know, getting some fresh air and stuff and enjoying the greenery. But you know, there's always I've been enjoying it. I'm just thankful for what I'm doing.
Yeah, so you're feeling quite thankful right now. Mikey, you've been deeply involved with the conversation over the last couple of hours. Do you have any burning thoughts that you need to get out there?
To be honest, not really. I mean, I have to say, I don't have the kind of clear. I've spoken to quite a lot of people. I've been quite lucky because we've been doing a lot of talkies. But it hasn't given me a kind of clarity about what this is all about and where we're going to go with this. I have to say. I mean, I do think, in a way, it's a kind of existential question for the whole world. But at the same time, I feel that even after whatever it is, 8 weeks, I don't even know how much time it's been. I've no idea. We're not still answering this existential question, which is, you know, like, what is our world all about? You know, because it's like, as John said, and he said a lot about the familiar is not necessarily the normal. But I don't think it's necessarily, to me, it's not necessarily about normal, but it's about us really having a lack of vision about what we want as a society, what we want in life. We just go through life like rushing from the one meeting to the next meeting, from work to the next thing, just rushing from one thing to the next. And that's not just me, that's everybody. But I don't think, you know, now that the pressure's off, we haven't really come up with anything else, I don't think. And maybe it's different for the more religious people like Shafi we heard has got like this, the faith, but for me, certainly not.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that we need more time to work out, you know, what we need? You know, do you think we need more time? Do you think that at the moment everyone's just kind of like going through it? So it's, you know, even though people say it's a time to reflect, do you think we need more time to work out what this world kind of means to us and what our purpose is?
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. How long? Okay. So
but I mean, I don't know if that means time in lockdown. But ideally, what I'd like to see is us being let out and free, but the businesses not really being opened up fully, like shops, keep shops closed, Open up bars and restaurants that keep the shops closed. That's what I would like to see.
Okay. So in a way, bars and restaurants represent something different to, you know, high street retail shops, for example. I'll give Margot a little second to get the person's point out there. It looks like there's somebody. Did somebody have a point outside, Margot?
I don't know. I just want to say to this man, we're just talking about, you know, do we need more time to change the way we are as humans? Because this lockdown has certainly made us a bit weird. But, you know, are we going to learn something as people, or are we just going to stay the same, I suppose, is the question.
Is it? Okay, live on Facebook. Right.
We're talking about, are we really changing things? This? Do we need to change? Are we just going to stay the same when we're finished?
I'm Frederick Oko, by the way.
Oh, Frederick, Mike,
Hi. Hi.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a strange one, really. The whole planet's like, been taken in a completely new place, and I mean, everything stopped. New medical regulations and economic faltering. But I don't know. In terms of people, I think this is a time when we can think about what we really want to do. Just think about our goals and plans and things like that on an individual level, or personal level. In terms of globally, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's.
Have you been reconsidering? Has it changed you, do you think, this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's in a funny way. It's kind of brought everybody together in a strange way, because we're all doing exactly the same thing on lockdown. We're all we're all communicating like that. But I mean, in terms of global change and where we go in the future, I really don't know. It just depends on how people feel and think individually.
Where would you like us to go? Where would ideally, if things worked out well, where would you like? Because that's one of the things we've been talking about a lot tonight.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about fairness, isn't it? In society, taking us forward to be more socially interactive and globally interactive. I guess that is certainly a way forward. But the only thing that there's a lot of uncertainty in people's minds because of the nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows how long it's going to be for. But yeah, sure. I mean.
Let's put it to the panel, because we've got a few people out there. You can see them on the screen out there that are listening to you. Any response to that? Ellen, you've maybe got something?
Well, I just wanted to ask a question that I asked before about the contact tracing app. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to be a failure. But what do people think? Has anyone downloaded it? Will anyone download it? Do they think that it's actually going to make a difference?
Sorry, I missed that. There's a motorcycle.
I'll turn this one up a little bit.
Passing.
Yeah, so it's about the contact tracing app. Will you actually be downloading it? Do you believe it's going to work? Do you trust it?
Contact tracing app. Just refresh me on that again.
Well, it's basically everyone's going to have on their phone, whether they've got COVID or not, and it's going to tell you all the people that you've been close to. So if somebody gets a positive diagnosis, then it will automatically inform everybody that you've been within 2 meters of.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
right. So you don't need an app. That's what I heard. And then they've got a bunch of volunteers ringing people up and saying, "Oh, okay, so you have to now not meet this person because they've got COVID."
Okay, so it sounds like Margot is Okay.
Final thoughts. So let's just get final thoughts from everybody, and maybe we'll go to Frederick last. But I'm going to try and turn it up a little bit so Frederick can hear it a little bit better. But Ellen, do you just want to get final thoughts from everybody else?
Yeah. So yeah, let's get some final thoughts from everyone. What a journey this conversation has taken us on. But why don't we get a final thought from yourself, Mikey, about
Well, I'm just doing something technical, so come back to me in a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll come back to you. What about yourself, Lorna? Any final thoughts from you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I think that maybe, even though in this time people have been saying about reflecting in this time, but I think maybe the reflection won't come until the reflection will come after, and perhaps that's when the reflection will come. I also, I don't know, I also feel that I also would like maybe for we the people to try to dictate more to these governments as to what it is the hell that they're doing, and what they're doing is it's not for us. It's just not right for us,
So that kind of goes back to what John was saying earlier about the public, the community, the people, kind of, we the ones who really have the power, I guess, But any final thoughts from yourself, Stephen? I know you've been in there. I wanted to actually ask you about, you said that you've purchased shopping for like 2 weeks, food and stuff for that can last up to 2 weeks. But anyway, we'll have to save that for another talkie session. But any final thoughts about anything you've heard today?
Yeah, it's been great, beautifully chaotic. I've really enjoyed it. It's gone off in all directions. Actually, I lived for over 2 months without doing shopping.
Wow.
Come back to that.
Mm.
I did some foraging.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Foraging.
Well, yeah, but just to supplement my vegetables. It wasn't for staples. It was just for the odd bit of green.
Wow.
But did you go foraging?
I feel like we need to.
No.
I probably went in the same cemetery that guy was saying because he lives in Peckham too.
I'm not on any. Into the mic.
I feel like we need to expand on the whole cemetery and the foraging thing at the next talkie session. So, Stephen, I hope you'll be there. What about yourself, George? Any final thoughts? I know.
Hello. Yeah. I have got some plumbing to do.
Oh.
You need some tips from Stephen about plumbing because he's really heard about.
It's all right. I'm actually I'm okay with compression fittings and that sort of thing now. So.
Oh wow.
But it's DIY central.
Wow. Okay. So George, not only are you a computer nerd, but you also know your way around some pipes. So hey.
This is yeah. You do what you can.
Good. Okay, so John, any final thoughts from yourself? It's all good here. It's all good.
Let me unmute John. There we go.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear
Here
me
we
now?
go. Yes, I can hear you.
A final thought.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say we're on the way. What we ought to do is keep it going because you never know. Distilling what a group of people seriously want to think about when they're given the freedom to open their mouths and say what is in their minds can lead to very good results. And I think it should go on. So let's all meet again sometime soon.
Let's all meet again sometime soon. Margot, any final thoughts from yourself? Oh.
Mike.
Oh, okay. Mikey, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I just want to echo, and that's probably the right word, Lorna's point. I think we just need to work out how to actually articulate that power and how to understand the power that we've got, because I do think, that we're not getting the government we deserve, but and we're not getting the services we deserve from our universe. But I think, you know, we need to somehow realize that we're the ones with the power, and I'm not sure exactly how to do it. You know, it's not government, it's not big authorities that are getting things done, it's actually people on the ground that are doing it. Maybe we should go to a final thought for Frederick. Have you got a final thought, Frederick?
I mean, I was just thinking about the injection business, you know, all that, you know, what's going to take us forward out of this lockdown thing, you know. And it seems unfair that everybody should take an injection, those who have been well, sort of thing. I don't really know how we're going to play that, but, you know, going forward, certainly individually we can make our plans, keep safe, keep strong, and make plans in our, you know, in our own minds in regard to what we're going to do going forward. And, you know, when all this lockdown's finished, we can put those plans into motion, you know. I had a funny idea.
Yeah.
I was thinking the coronavirus doesn't like alcohol. Okay? And, the whole world should get drunk right at the same time.
Big time. Absolutely. I'm on it.
The whole world should get, you know, within a specific time, but everybody's going to drink.
So if we all took kind of like went for, instead of a global lockdown, a global drink down.
There's also a hand job if you want to.
Would that work? Would that be the answer?
Well, that's a funny idea, but I mean, yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, we should all stick together. But, you know, God bless the world, you know.
A coordinate. I don't know how it would go down with our Muslim community here, but a global drink down to me sounds like a great idea.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final thought to wrap this up, Ellen?
Well, yeah, I have to say, this discussion, it took us in every single direction. It was very deep at many points and not that deep at other points, but I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it too. And I also hope to see you at our next talkie session. And the next opportunity to chat this way is going to be, drum roll.
It's going to be on the 9th of June. We're going to be doing a special one with Rich Mix. It's going to be from 12 till 2. And that's going to be like a huge conversation. We've got lots of people lined up for that. It's going to be much bigger. I don't know if we're going to be experimenting with the Vox Pops on the street. We'll see. We might be doing some practice in the meantime, just to get this a little bit more slick. But thanks for everyone for bearing with us and listening and being so receptive and giving your thoughts and your contributions. It's been a great evening, actually. So, and especially thanks to you, Ellen, for being such a great host as well. And thanks to everyone. It's time now for the global Zoom wave. And thanks to Frederick joining in at the last minute. Thanks for just jumping in there. And we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys. See you next time.
See you.